Greetings, friends and future friends. Today's video is on the Korg Pa5x. Now in this video, I want to show you a few more things on how to set up and create a pad in the Korg Pa5x. Now there are some selections, some parameter changes we can make to make sure that the tempo of your pad matches the tempo of your style when you're playing it. And also goes for the pitch also. We're going to make some selections and some parameter changes to make sure that the pitch of your pad matches the chord changes when you're playing that style. And I want to show you a few other things too. So let's get in the studio and see how that stuff works. Okay, before we create any pads, I want to show you a couple of things here. So we hit record edit, we hit new pad, and we brings us up to this screen. Now what we're going to do is hit the menu button, and it brings you up to this screen. So first we have mixer and effects. Now, this is a mixer and of course master effects and bend tuning. This is all going to take place to the track that you already recorded. So it's not going to change the sound when you're recording. So if you come over here and you EQ it and the sound doesn't change, it's not going to change the sound you're playing, but the sound that you've already recorded. Back to menu. Drum editor is the same thing as in the drum editor of a style. You can change the volumes, the tuning and all that of your drums if we're recording a drum track. And then pad type. This is very important because this is going to dictate what kind of pad you're creating. We got it on loop because that's what we're going to do. And then you can see a lot of this stuff isn't lit up. But if we hit this area here, you're going to see drum, bass, accompaniment, and guitar. Now, on drum, what that's going to do is prioritize the synchronization of the tempo of your pad to the tempo of your style. So that's going to be very important, you know, if you're creating a drum track, and it won't change the pitch. Now, bass, what that's going to do is going to look for the last note of that chord you're playing. So when you're playing create this pad and you're playing the chord, what it's going to do is look for that last note of that chord, and that's going to trigger what type of change you're going to have to this pad. Accompaniment, it's going to look at more generally what that chord is. So in other words, if your pad goes a 1-3-5 like a major scale, the 1-3-5 of that major scale, it's going to play that when we're in accompaniment. But if you go and play a minor chord, then it's going to change that 1-3-5 from a major scale to a minor scale. So that it's going to look at the whole chord structure. And of guitar, that's talking about the virtual guitar, which we'll get into that later. Maybe a few videos down the road we'll do one. And basically what it's doing is playing the arpeggio like a guitar from the E string 6 to the top E string. And that's something we'll get into later. But let's go to accompaniment. Now you're going to see a few things open up. One, all the noises, sound range. One of the biggest things is the trigger mode, because down here you're going to see off, re-trigger, re-pitch. Now in accompaniment, do you want that pad to just re-trigger? Every time you hit a chord, it'll do that. Now, if you hit re-pitch, what it'll do is play, and as you're playing that chord and you change to the chord, that arpeggio will keep playing, but it'll change pitch. So that's off, just plays it like a regular sample basically, or a regular pad. Re-trigger re-triggers it every time you make a chord change, and re-pitch changes the pitch. All this stuff in here, we go back to off, all these things in here are going to depend on what kind of pad you're going to create, because some things you want to re-trigger, some things you want to re-pitch. So that's one thing you got to look at. And of course, the scale, say you don't want this pad to play over a C4, well then you just go down here and you go C4 and you bring it up to C4. And where's my C4? It's in there somewhere. There it is. And now this pad won't play anything above a C4. Go back here and then chord table. This is going to bring up, gets more intricate on what chords you want to play and what variations. Down here, track control. Now this won't pertain much to the drum tracks, but when you're playing any synth parts, you can actually change that synth part as you're going along. It's pretty cool there. And pad edit is basically an overall of the whole pad, things you can change. And event, this I'll show you later on, is very important because it's just like the event sheet in the style. You can change things. And import. Now, in pad edit, you can import a MIDI file. So again, remember, you got to have a 16-track MIDI file. 9 through 16 is where you actually record things, but you could actually import a MIDI file into the pad. And basically, we'll get more in depth as we create pads, but basically, this is the menu. Once you hit record edit, hit pad edit, it brings you up to this screen. And then once you get into this screen, you hit menu, and it brings you up to these other menus. Okay, let's create a pad. So we hit record edit, we hit new pad, and we come in here and say, let's create a drum pad. Just go over to here, and I like that rock kit, exit. And we'll make this 4 measures. Turn the metronome on. Now we'll go to menu, go over here to pad type, and make sure that's on drum. Everything looks good. Exit out of that. And let's see what our hi-hat sounds like. Okay. Now I'm going to leave this on, 16th. Yeah, let's leave it on 1/8. Now, again, the resolution, what it's going to do is I might mess up playing this drum track, but what it's going to do is recognize wherever my hit is, it's going to go to the closest 8th note. And looks good. We have it on 120. Now, the tempo when you're creating a drum track isn't that important because the drum track is going to look at the tempo of your style and match that. But what I recommend is, depending on what style you're gonna bring this drum track in, if it's like a 150 or 160, you might want to go to a 120 or higher to record this. And if you had a style that's down like it's 60 beats per minute, you might want to drop it down so you get the feel of it. Okay, so it looks like we're ready to go. Got the metronome on, got 4 lengths. Gonna hit record, and we'll push the play or 1 button. Sounds good. And we'll unarm the record. Sounds good. We'll disengage the metronome. And let's just look at the, it looks pretty good. Now we're in the event sheet, and you can see that every first hit is a little bit louder on that hi-hat. Then you can see the first note of the hit is a little bit louder than the second note of that beat. Looks good. Escape. Now let's record the kick drum and the snare. Let's see if we can record that. We'll hit record. You can see I made a little mistake there, but let's play it back and see what it sounds like. I think it quantized perfectly. Sounds good, sounds good. Now, what we can do is let's go in and go into the drum editor. And you know, that kick drum is up there pretty loud, so let's change the volume of that a little bit. And let's bring the volume of the hi-hat down. Now, just like the drum editor in any of the styles or anything you want to do, just take, for example, let's bring up the snare and I'll give you an example. If we wanted to change the tuning of that snare, sounds pretty good. So we exit, go over here, go save pad, and we'll call this drum pad. Okay, save. Now exit out of everything, and we'll go over to pad 1, user, look at drum pad, exit. If we play, push the button on the deck. Did you notice how it picked up on speed? Why? Because we're changing the tempo. So if we change the tempo in this style, so what did we just do? We went into record edit, hit pad edit, recorded a soundtrack, a drum track, and created a pad from it. And remember, that's the important thing. The important thing that, so if we want to go, and let's go back and we'll edit this pad, and we hit record edit, edit pad, drum pad, and we can actually edit this pad. The big important thing was this thing right here. It's a drum. We've had this on drum. So we recorded a drum track, we made sure this was on drum, and we created a pad. Okay, before we get started and I zoom into the screen to show you a little bit more information on these pads, I want to talk about a basic piano theory. And basically, when you go to record an arpeggio, you're going to be recording it in C major. So this is a C major scale, which is a 1, 3, and a 5. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to record a little arpeggio, and what we're going to do is if this is a 5-note scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so what we're going to do is we're going to record a 1, 2, 3, 5. Now, when you record that, the Korg is looking at that and saying, okay, you played a 1, 2, 3, 5 in C major. So if we play a chord in our style of a D major, what the Korg's going to do is transpose that scale to the new scale of D major, which is going to play the 1, 2, 3, 5. 1, 2, 3, 5. And if we went to E major, it would play the E major, 1, 2, 3, 5. So I want you to understand that. So when you record your scale or your arpeggio in the scale of C major, 1, 2, 3, 5, it's going to recognize that in the C major scale and then transpose it. And a little curve to this is if we play C minor in our style, now it's going to look at the C minor scale and go 1, 2, 3, 5. So remember, this is very important on how you record it. I recommend everybody to record it in C major. That way you know that it's recording it in the C major, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all those notes. And then when you go to play it back, when it transposes it, it'll figure out what it has to do to make it fit in your style. Okay, let's create another pad and we'll make this an arpeggio. So we hit record edit, we hit new pad, come into this screen. First thing we want to do is change that to 4 measures. And so we're going to keep that at 8th notes because that's going to be about what we're going to do. But the big thing we're going to do is come over here, go to pad type. We're going to make this an accompaniment. and we want this to repitch. And what we do is exit out of this. And now you can see this is lit up. We're going to be playing in C major. Let's go to synth lead and play this. So if we play C4, D4, E4, F4, and G4, and we'll play. Sounds good. Now we'll exit out of this. And they'll keep it at 120. We'll turn the metronome on so we hear it. Hit record and start. Stop, unarm the record, play it back. Sounds good. Now we can actually just go over here and look at the events, and now you can actually see the events that we actually played. If we needed to change any of those notes, we could go back and go to, what I want to show you is these track controls. So right here, I want to show you that because we used a factory preset. Now, when you use your own samples, your own sounds, you might be limited because of how it looks at your sample. But here, using a factory sound, we can actually change the sound of this. Now, when you're creating your own sound, when you created your own sound, you bring it in here, you might not be able to adjust it as well as you can when you're using factory presets, because as we've seen before, there's a lot of information in these factory presets. But basically, the envelope I can change, the filter, I can actually change the timing between the notes. So most of these adjustments we've already made and everything's working fine. And remember, when you want to make an adjustment, you have to hit the player 1 button to start the pad to start to play, and then you can make adjustments. But one thing I want to talk about is this wraparound. Okay, I changed the camera angle on this shot because I want to explain this wraparound. So we have our pad brought up, and I'm going to hit record, pad edit. We're going to edit that pad, and then we're going to go to the menu and bring in pad type. Now, the thing I want to focus in on and why I want to show you the keyboard is wraparound. So basically what the wraparound is doing is changing where when you sample, when you hit this key, it's going to send to the transposer how to transpose that note or that arpeggio or that pad that you're playing. It's an arpeggio in the pad. And I want you to see the difference. So if we bring it up to where it was on 9, and I play this, got to get it started first. I play the A minor. Now watch when I play the E minor. What it did is it went up. So what I like to do, because I play guitar, is I like to make sure that the E is always the bottom note. So we change and we can play with this, because what we're doing is we're shifting because it's going to go to its highest note, and then once it hits its highest note, it's going to start all over again. And depending on how many octaves are in that sample, of course, we're using a factory sound, so there's probably, the length of the keyboard, but it's going to change. So right now I have the wraparound on 9, and let's play that again. We'll play the A minor, the E minor. Now let's change the wraparound to 2. And now let's play the A minor. And now that E minor is playing lower than the A. Again, all these settings are going to depend on your arpeggio because there's not one said rule. But this is a very important thing that I think a lot of people neglect, because this is also a function in the style editor. And what that wrap is doing is it's saying, okay, we're playing this scale and we're going to move it up. So when we hit the top note, then we're going to start all over again. So what you want to do is change that pattern where it's going to go from up here to down there. So what we did, going from 9 to 2, we actually made this change so that that E minor is now lower. Something you can play around with, but definitely something that will enhance your sound or change your sound the way you need it to be. Okay, we got everything set up. Let's go back, exit out of this. Now we're going to go save pad, and we're going to save it as keyboard arpeggio pad. Okay. Okay, save. Yes. Okay. And exit out of this. Okay, now that we saved that pad, let's bring it up. Let's go to user, keyboard arpeggio pad, escape, exit, and there we are. And if we play pad 1, and first thing you want to note is notice it changes with the tempo. That's one good thing we have going on. That's changing with the tempo. And the other thing I want to show you is I'm playing a C major. Now watch when I play the C minor. Now if I go back and forth from the C major, so that selection we made in the menu, repitch, and also accompaniment, allows the Pa5x to say, hey, what is that? What scale is that? Okay, you played a 1, 2, 3, 5 in C major. If I change it to any scale, I change it to C minor. Now it's playing the 1, 2, 3, 5 in the C minor scale, and it's transposing it. Also, because of the triggering, the repitch also creates a synchronization between the tempo and this pad. So now we got an arpeggio, and if we ever need to bring it up, it's right there. And again, if we want to, we can go hit that arpeggio, make sure it's in there, hit record edit, and then now we can go pad edit. Go over here to pad 1, and actually we can make changes to it. So we could go back in there, and then let's just go back here, and you can see repitch and accompaniment. But we can actually change things if we wanted to. If we wanted to change the way the envelope was, go back here and track controls, maybe put a little wobble to it, when we play it. And then once you make these changes, you can either save it as a new pad or save it as the existing pad. Okay, I want to show you something else. Something you could add to an arpeggio or a pad using an existing pad. So we have this pad we created, keyboard arpeggio, and recorded in a C major. Now, what we're going to do here is hit record edit, and hit pad edit and click on that, go OK. And now we're going to go up here to pad. Now we're going to put sound range. And as we play it, we're going to bring this range down. Okay, all we did was just engage the sound range and bring it down to C3 as the top, and we have this playing now. Now, what we can do is exit out of this, go over here, save pad, and we'll call this C3. Okay, save. Now we'll exit out of everything. And for pad 1, we'll bring up our user pad and exit. And then pad 2, we'll bring up user, the pad C3, exit. Now, what we did is we have this pad that we created from C. But here's the other pad. Now, if we play them both together, so what did we just do? We created an arpeggio pad, then we brought it into edit, and then just changed the range and created another arpeggio. But it's in perfect time with the first one. Here's the original when I play an A minor. And here's the second one when we play A minor. So if we add them both together, and notice that they both will change with the chord structure. So I'm playing an A minor and then I'm augmenting it. So here's another thing you can do with these pads. You can layer them. And as you can see, we took one pad, we brought it into edit. All we did was click on that pad, hit record edit, pad edit, bring it into pad edit, and then we brought it into here, and then we changed the range. And you know what? We could do it again. Let's do this. Let's play that pad. So, and then let's go exit, and let's save this pad as Joe pad, and we'll call this C5. Okay, save, exit out of everything, and pad 1 will come up and bring up our original pad that we created. Pad 2 will bring user, and we'll bring up user pad C3, exit. Third pad will bring up user C5, exit. So now if we play pad 3, we play pad 2 and play 1. And if we play A minor, so there you go. Another way to use these pads. You can actually create pads from other existing pads and then layer them. and it really sounds cool. I like this pad 2 and pad 1. Actually, pad 2 and pad 3 sound pretty cool too. So when you're working with these pads, creating new pads from existing pads, it's limitless what you can do with them. So I hope this video showed you a few more things on how to set up and create pads into Korg Pa5x. When working with these pads, there's just so many things you can do in this keyboard. Also, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. That way you'll help us grow the channel and we can bring you more cool stuff. So take care, my friends, and thanks for watching.